Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the American football podcast, Laces Out. We've got special guest this week, podcast favourite Matthew Moore, to give us his picks for the week and his picks for the season. So there's that. If you're checking us out on YouTube, do subscribe, it's a massive help. If you're just listening along, that's fine, but you can still subscribe, and it is a big help to us. So here we go. This is CookieCast, Laces Out.
Recording in progress.
Fucking button had gone again. She's back, and so are we. And for you YouTube watchers, big shout out to Laura Hayden, who keeps commenting on the progression of the beard podcast, as I think we might have to start calling at least a podcast. But this is not a beard-based podcast. It is in fact a strange, somewhat egg-shaped football-based podcast with the aptly titled name, The Laces Out Podcast. For you non-YouTube watchers, I am here in body, if not spirit or mind. My glamorous co-host, Paul Williams, man in the rudder, and our guest, plucked fresh from the fantasy leagues. You know him as the host of The Pursuit of Hoppiness. You know him from the Getting Over podcast. And hey, why not from a round football-based podcast? Mr. Matthew Moore, welcome to you, sir.
Hello, everybody.
So, let's get down to business, and the business is the NFL 2021 season. Week there was a week it happened. It was 3.
It was week 2.
There it is.
And we're moving into week 3.
That's the one.
Before we get on to week 3, obviously, because this is Matt's first appearance of the season, we've got to talk season-long predictions with him. So, Matt, this isn't Matt's first rodeo. He knows how this is going to work. So, Mr. Moore, would you like to give me your pick for who you believe the 2 Super Bowl teams will be?
It's probably going to be particularly boring. And kind of... Well, the AFC is boring because, spoiler alert, even though they may have lost this week, I really can't see anybody else than the Chiefs kind of coming out of the AFC this year. It's quite, apart from them, the rest are pretty kind of things like last year. I think last year I predicted the Bills, and that looked really good, and then it didn't. And I think this year the Bills seem to take a step back, so it'll be the Chiefs from the AFC.
Okay.
From the NFC, I could go safe, I could go really chalky, and I could say that Tampa Bay are going back to the Super Bowl.
You wouldn't be the first, nor the second.
Kind of like, you know, do I RELAX and think that Aaron's going to go on a tear to kind of finish his last season in Green Bay, but then also being a West Coast team fan, do I pick one of the West Coast teams and it's not going to be the 49ers. Do I pick the Rams? They're my 3 in terms of the NFC, and I think I'm going to go Rams just to be different.
Interesting. So that is a first for this season's podcast. No one has picked the Rams yet.
Just to be different. I don't want it to be too kind of chalky and predictable with oh yeah, Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Chiefs.
So, obviously, it'd be terrible to be that predictable, wouldn't it, Andrew?
I mean, I'm sitting right here. I'm
Nobody's got to do
literally.
it.
I introduced you to the podcast. I mean, I couldn't be more present and correct. But if you want to do it like that, it's just going to be even funnier when I'm like, just remind me again how the Rams are going to the Super Bowl this year when TB12's sending in his ring size.
Sitting there with his bath of avocado and
making a lot of these pictures.
There's a couple of people within the sort of realms of the actual NFL headquarters who I think they're quietly hoping that the Rams go all the way, because it means that they won't have to board a plane and fly. Well, they won't have to board a plane and fly anywhere anyway, because it's at SoFi Stadium. So regardless of who goes there, they're going to have to just walk across the street to get to the stadium for the coverage. But yeah, there's a couple of people who are thinking that we could have, after having none for 55 years, we could have back-to-back teams playing the Super Bowl in their own stadium, which would be quite nice.
I don't know. If anybody listens, of course they do listen to the other podcasts that we do. Yeah, everyone knows I'm like a bit of contrarian. I like to kind of perhaps have a little zig when everyone else is zagging. And at the end of the day, realistically, if someone said, right, put your house on one, you'd go with Chiefs and Bucks. They 2 games into the season, they look like the 2 best teams in the league. But just to be a little bit different, I'll go with the Rams. I quite like their coach. He's a bit kind of out there, and I quite like the structure of their team. And Aaron Donald is just my man crush. Whenever he's on TV, I'm like, look at him go.
A good point. So, does that mean that you're picking the Rams to win, or would you be picking the Chiefs to win?
I mean, I'm not that daft. I'd pick the Chiefs to win.
I thought you were going to go, are you going to pick the Chiefs to win, or do you need your head examining?
So, Chiefs. And do I even need to ask who you'd be picking as the MVP if the Chiefs win it?
Well, I mean, you can't really see it being any... Unless like, Tyreek Hill goes absolutely nuts and has about 4 or 5 touchdowns, or one of the defensive players does something awesome, which, to be fair, the Chiefs' defense really does not kind of show any kind of evidence of that.
Yeah.
It's going to be Holmes, isn't it?
You'd be expecting, like, Tyrann Mathieu to have, like, 5 interceptions or something ridiculous like that, or... I honestly can't even think, like, who their linebackers are, to be honest.
This is the problem.
Fisher's gone, so...
This is the problem, isn't it? That, like, apparently... And I know, like, the Baltimore run game is exceptional, kind of thing, but they were getting 8 yards with, they're getting 8 yards on Sunday night, with the third string running back who's barely kind of had any time to practice. That's the worry with the Chiefs. If you take the Chiefs, the biggest worry is their defense, a Super Bowl winning kind of thing. But last year it wasn't really a Super Bowl getting to level defense, and they got to the Super Bowl, and
was a strange one. So sticking down for Mahomes for MVP.
Yeah.
So, to go in the book alongside Buccaneers Chiefs, with Bucks to win and Brady for the MVP from Mr. Cook. Green Bay versus Buffalo from myself, with the Packers and Aaron Rodgers to be the MVP. Stu, Buccaneers versus Bills, with the Buccaneers to win and Brady to be MVP. And Rob's pick from last week of the Packers versus the Chiefs, with the Chiefs to win and Patrick Mahomes to be the MVP. So that's the season-long Super Bowl prediction. However, this season we've changed it up a little bit, and we've also gone for the league MVP. Now, so far, 4 people have been asked, 4 people have given their predictions, and we've had 4 different picks.
Alright, okay.
So, does Mr. Moore have a different person to the 4 names that I've got written down in front of me here?
Probably not.
Ooh. So your pick for season-long MVP is?
I mean, do I want to be like? Do I want to get a different? The problem is now I'm like, oh man, what have people predicted? Mahomes will be one of them. Aaron Rodgers will probably be one of them. Tom Brady's already been predicted.
I don't want to swear you, so I'm not going to say anything.
I'm somewhere between Brady or Matt Stafford. I'd go. I think my more likely one would put me down for Tom Brady. But as if people listen to the football podcast, I gave a very good kind of tip about first manager sacked, and that one, if you got on that one, came through. But as a little outsider, Matt Stafford. If the Rams have a really good kind of regular season, I think Matt Stafford could be a possible MVP winner.
Do you know what? Wouldn't disagree with either of those two. Obviously, Brady started off as hot as ever. I think he's got 9 touchdowns through the first 2 weeks. Obviously, that's a bit of a spoiler as it comes to not predictions but results from last week. And obviously, Stafford's 2 from 2. Not as impressive a second week as his first week was, but they got the win. That's all that matters. So I wouldn't be surprised if he is in the running come the end of the season. But surprisingly enough, you picking Tom Brady for the season-long MVP is not a duplication. So we have 5 different picks. Even if you'd have picked Stafford, it wouldn't have been a duplication. So Andy has gone with Aaron Rodgers to get a second consecutive league MVP. I have gone with Josh Allen to step up to the plate and continue his good form from last season to get the MVP. Stu has gone for the MVP of 2 seasons ago to step back up to the plate in Lamar Jackson. And Rob has picked probably the favourite in Patrick Mahomes.
Okay.
So we'll see who's picked correctly come the end of the season. But there you go. There's Mr. Moore's season-long predictions for you. We jump from season-long predictions to instantaneous week predictions. So obviously, as we said at the start of the podcast, this is week 2's roundup and week 3's predictions. So 16 games to pick, as we're still in the first couple of weeks, of course. 16 points up for grabs. In 3rd place, with 9 correct picks out of the 16 games in question. He's pointing at himself, ladies and gentlemen. And it is indeed him. It's Mr. Andrew Cook. Congratulations, Andy. 9 correct picks.
Better than half.
Slightly worse than your week from last week. So you've dropped slightly.
I slipped a step.
Next, or second as it was, with 10 out of 16 correct picks. It was last week's guest, ladies and gentlemen. It was Mr. Rob Rafton. A good solid start to his predictions, or a good solid continuation from the guest. But winning the week with a second consecutive week of 12 out of 16 correct picks is my good self. So I'll happily take the point and the win for the week as it was. So 12 out of 16 correct picks. The only teams that let me down were the Steelers, who let everybody down.
I was just about to say, yeah, the Steelers who let everyone down.
The Saints, whereas Robert correctly picked the Panthers to win that one. So he obviously had a crystal ball where he could see that Jameis was going to go from a 5-touchdown, no interception week to just basically shitting the bed.
It's got to even up that kind of balance there.
We did say, I think if you go back and listen to last week's podcast,
say
that he might just try and throw 5 picks just to even himself up for the season. Steelers, Saints, the Seahawks. Who saw that one coming?
It's a weird one, that one.
Losing against the Titans. And of course the Chiefs. No one saw the Chiefs slipping up against the Ravens, which was strange.
The Titans went back to the well that works. That's Derrick Henry. For whatever reason, they thought, all right, yeah, we've got this awesome running back. Let's not give him the ball. Oh, you know what works? Giving him the ball because he's a monster.
Yeah, I now feel completely foolish for saying that. Derrick Henry's due a down year, isn't he?
All the fantasy podcasts that I listen to have been like, oh god, all those people that drafted Derrick Henry in the first 4 or 5 in their fantasy league. Oh, people are spending $50 in an auction draft on it. How stupid are they? Oh, some people got him in like 3 of the 4 leagues that they're in. Oh, it could be in real trouble. And then you're like, or he's a beast, and they'll go back to that well over and over again. Maybe they're just trying something.
I'll keep going. I'll just keep going back to the thing I saw, and I think I'll probably quote it wrong, but Derrick Henry is the only human being on the planet to go 2,000 yards in school, college, and the NFL. It's like that is a stat. When the stat is the only human being on the planet, it's like that's some sick statage right there.
And it's just ridiculous when you think about people like Eric Dickerson and Bo Jackson as well that have gone before, who probably had the 2,000 in high school and 2,000 in college, but never got the 2,000 in the NFL, which is just mental.
I was listening to a podcast the other day. It wasn't even like NFL based or anything. Was it Bo Jackson that went from the NFL to Major League Baseball?
He didn't. All the way around. So there's a really good documentary on. It's the 30 for 30 ESPN.
That's what they were talking about. That's exactly what they were talking about.
Was it?
That's the thing that was being discussed.
Good documentary because it's absolutely insane the things that he does, and I can't think he was trying to draft him, and he basically went, I don't want to play for you. And they were like, well, what are you going to do? He's like, well, I'll go and play baseball. And they were like, no, you won't. And he was like, yeah, I will. And off he went, signed a massive contract with, I want to say the A's. Don't quote me on that. I can't remember who he signed for. But he went and played baseball. And then the Raiders came in and were like, please, come on, we'll trade for you. We'll give you the money, come and play. And he was like, yeah, but I still want a 2-way contract. So he'd go and play the NFL during the kind of, 4 months that the NFL ran. And then he'd kind of dust himself down, have a couple of weeks off, and then straight into into the Major League Baseball, which was already in full swing by that point. So, or like they were definitely in winter training anyway. And he just turned up and, the most annoying thing about it is that he never, in both sports, he's not had a good enough career to become a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, that's what had come up.
But both of them were just, it's mental that someone was that good. I think Deion Sanders also.
Deion Sanders was the other one that came up
as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't remember.
Deion Sanders was mental because I think he played both in the same day.
Yeah.
Okay. That's another one. If you've got Game Pass, there's like a documentary on there. I think it's called Dion's Double Play, and it covers the fact that he played. I can't remember if it was that he played his. I think it must have been that he played. It might have been like Monday Night Football, and then he got on a plane and flew to Atlanta to play the Braves playoff game or whatever it was, because I think he played for the Braves and the Falcons at the same time. So it's a good watch, and it is crazy to think that like this was like in the 90s. I think that he did it. Or it was the very late 80s that he did it, and it's just crazy to think that like they both were like, yeah, go on then, just do it. If you get injured, then we're a bit fucked. But I mean, you do you, man. You do you.
Conversation, I can't remember. I think it was Bo Jackson suffered an injury, but not because he took a hit, because he was trying to release himself from getting taken down, and pulled his leg at such force that he basically pulled his leg out. So it wasn't the hit that injured him; it was him injuring himself.
It's absolutely mental that it's kind of like he dislocated his hip, popped it back in, carried on playing.
Yeah.
But then found that he trapped a blood vessel.
Yeah.
That resulted in kind of bits like parts of his leg effectively just dying, kind of thing. But then went back, had an operation, got himself back, and still played. It's one of them like the kind of thing. The phrase at the moment is like unicorn, like proper unicorn player kind of thing.
Yeah, it was saying like just the size of him as well.
Mm.
For like baseball, especially, like being massive is a bit of the two things don't always go together.
Once you finish watching this on YouTube, Google Bo Jackson breaking baseball bats over his head or his thigh.
Yeah.
And it's just like, right, oh, damn, I've kind of struck out, crack, baseball bat over his leg. And you think, Christ, I wouldn't break it and I'd be crying on the floor, kind of thing after. His athleticism was just...
Yeah, they were saying, like, for the two people, and weirdly it was Bo Jackson and Deion Sanders, were saying, like, absolute specimens. So, yeah, a little aside, a little bit of something there for you. So, that's last week. Done. In the bag. But... she's been at it again, kids. She's out there. She's got the stick, and she goes out into the field, and off in the distance are all those stats, and she sends the dog out after them and brings them in, herds them into the pen, and goes, oh, that's a good one there. That one, that's good. Oh, that's not a good one. So she takes all those stats, gets them all together, and then sends them through what's known as electronic mail to myself, and then I divvy it up between my glamorous co-host and, where possible, the guest. Because let's face it, nobody wants to listen to me read out loud for 16 stats. So, not only is the stats mistress back, so is our good friend Nate Davis of USA Today. So big credit to you. This is the NFL stats for Week 2 of the 2021 season. All credits are Nate Davis and the Stats Mistress. Number 1, and it's a doozy. It's a tough day for quarterbacks throughout the league. Chicago Bears, Andy Dalton, knee. Houston Texans, Tyrod Taylor, hamstring. Miami Dolphins, Tua Tagovailoa, ribs. Indianapolis Colts, Carson Wentz, ankle. All going down. The Las Vegas Raiders, Derek Carr, and Cleveland Browns, Baker Mayfield, also injured, but but persevered and continued in victorious efforts. Could Carr emerge as an MVP candidate? Paul doesn't think so. After throwing for 817 yards and 4 touchdowns through 2 games, I know one man who was certainly looking to trade for that quarterback.
Let's put it this way. If Derek Carr wins the MVP, it's because 2 of the other quarterbacks in his division have basically retired from the game.
I mean, certainly from a fantasy perspective, those yards speak for themselves. Number 3, but Arizona Cardinals quarterback Kyler Murray may be the prematurely early MVP frontrunner amid a 2-0 start that's seen him produce 7 touchdowns through the air and 2 on the ground. Number 4, everybody's favourite player, unless it's Tom Brady, Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback Tom Brady, who has got 3 league MVP trophies on the mantle. TB12 already has 9 touchdown passes, a personal best, through 2 weeks, which puts him on pace for 77. And finally, from me, the 5th stat of the week. Bucks Mike Edwards is probably your NFC Defensive Player of the Week after cashing in 2 fourth-quarter pick sixes. The first player to manage that in 29 years during Tampa's 48-25 beating of Atlanta. Paul, I believe it's over to you, sir, for more stats.
Certainly is. Sunday's undermanned Baltimore Ravens knocked off the 2-time defending AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs 36-35 thanks to a sublime display by 2019 league MVP Lamar Jackson. He passed 239 yards and a touchdown and rushed for an additional 107 yards and 2 touchdowns as Baltimore held the ball for nearly 36 of the 60 minutes. A salute to Ravens head coach John Harbaugh for keeping the ball in Jackson's hands on the 4th and 1 from the Baltimore 43-yard line with 65 seconds to go. It was Jackson's first triumph over 2018 MVP Patrick Mahomes in 4 matchups. This next stat is it's ridiculous, and I can expand on it as well. Mahomes was spectacular in his own right, passing for 343 yards and 3 touchdowns. But he ultimately suffered his first loss in 12 career September starts while throwing his first ever interception in the opening month of the season. So just to expand on that, that's not Patrick Mahomes' first loss in September in the NFL. It's his first loss in September ever. Yeah. So apparently he went through his entire high school and college career without losing a game in September. That is ridiculous. Let's not hand comeback player of the year honours to Dallas QB Dak Prescott just yet. San Francisco 49ers defensive end Nick Bosa, who tore an ACL in the second game of 2020, has 3 sacks through 2 weeks, putting him on pace for a record 25 and a half. And welcome back to Denver wide receiver Cortland Sutton, who also missed most of 2020 due to an ACL tear. He posted a career best 159 receiving yards in Sunday's win at Jacksonville to put the Broncos at a surprising 2-0. Mm-hmm. We saw that coming at the start. Shout out to Cowboys kicker Greg Zuerlein, who bounced back from a rough Week 1 loss at Tampa Bay to drill a game-winning 56-yard field goal at the gun to zap the Chargers. Cincinnati Bengals QB Joe Burrow saw his streak of 200 consecutive passes without an interception end on Sunday. Sadly, he reeled off 3 picks in 3 consecutive attempts in Sunday's loss to Chicago. You know it's bad when you're just tossing picks every time you go on the field.
Yeah.
A feeling that I believe Zach Wilson knows a lot about, as I believe his opening stats for the game on Sunday were 2 attempts, 2 interceptions. So, looks like the Jets have picked a winner there. So. And finally, for my stats, Saints quarterback Jameis Winston had an ugly reversion from his 5 TD opener, throwing a pair of interceptions in a 26-7 loss to the Carolina Panthers. But hey, he did rush for a team-best 19 yards, which was 14 more than his teammate Alvin Kamara. Oh dear. I'd hate to be the guy that has Alvin Kamara in both of his fantasy leagues. On to you, Matthew.
Excellent. Well, the first one I've got is you kind of stepped on my toes a little bit with your Zach Wilson stats there. So he had 4 interceptions in the end for the Jets game against the Pats. We all know that old Belichick loves a matchup against a rookie quarterback, particularly a Jets one. To add on top of that, there's been 4 rookies, including Zach Wilson, that have had 4 interceptions with no touchdowns in their rookie season in the past 10, 15 years. Want to guess who might be a couple of the other ones at all?
So what's this? 4 picks and no TDs?
4 picks and no TDs. You don't have to look too far from home, would be the kind of thing if we're talking about Zach Wilson doing it.
Was it Sam Darnold?
Sam Darnold is one of them.
Are they basically all going to have played for the Jets?
Yeah, so Mark Sanchez is the other one. He followed that one up with a 5 interception, 1 touchdown game against the Bills as well. And then Alex Smith had one as well at the 49ers. Just to add on to that one. We touched on it before. Appears Titans All-Pro running back Derrick Henry is back on track to win a 3rd rushing title after grinding out 182 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. And that game looked dead and buried before they went back to him. Here we go. Poor Tyrod Taylor. Oh, bless him. The Texans interim quarterback was off to another good start Sunday. Touchdown pass and a touchdown run before that hamstring issue shelved him in Cleveland. Rookie Davis Mills took over. This could mark the 3rd season in the past 4 that an injury has caused Taylor to lose his job to a first-year player after Mayfield replaced him in 2018, while eventual offensive rookie of the year Herbert capitalised on after Taylor was sidelined by a painkilling injection that punctured his lung in week 2. I think he might be a little bit more safe this year after watching that. The Giants' Daniel Jones played like a franchise quarterback on Thursday night with 95 rushing yards. Suffered a loss to Washington for the first time in 5 career starts. Fun fact, former Giants QB Eli Manning never rushed for more than 80 yards in a season. And then last one, despite their loss, the Steelers now have a sack in 75 consecutive games, which is an NFL record. That defense is awesome.
That's one of those ones where, in theory, they should just keep that going forever.
Yeah.
Because, I don't think they're going to come up against an offensive line that's so good that they're not going to get to the quarterback once during a game.
Not with the amount of pressure that they can put on and looks that they have, like what's his name, Micah Fitzpatrick.
Minka Fitzpatrick, yeah. TJ Watt's the one as well. If he just comes off the edge,
he went off injured though, didn't he?
He did, but fingers crossed it's nothing too serious, and he'll be back next week.
So there we go. Stats are plenty. What we need to do now is look at the coming games of this week and see what we've predicted. So the way we're doing it this season, as seasons gone by, is myself and Paul take on the collective guest. So some weeks we might have two guests. They get to team up and try and take us down. Paul's off to an absolute flyer this season. I don't think it's anything to do with the Stats Mistress not being here at all. So, I have sent my picks. I believe from behind the scenes that Matthew has also sent his picks. And,
certainly has.
I imagine Paul has managed to fill in his picks. So all that's left to do is let you lovely people know what we think is going to go down this week. Paul.
So we open with the Thursday night football, which this week, similar to last week, is not one for the purists. With the Carolina Panthers travelling to Houston to take on the potentially quarterbackless Texans. You'll all be shocked to hear that we've picked a Panthers win in this one. Can't think why. But you'd imagine that give the ball to CMC and just watch the game evaporate from the Texans.
Yeah.
We carry on with the Bears travelling to Cleveland to take on the Browns. It's another clean sweep of the Browns from the Cookie Cast boys. We have the Indianapolis Colts going to Tennessee to take on the Titans. We've all picked the Titans. I'm assuming we're all thinking that Derrick Henry's just going to get unleashed again.
I thought about the Colts, and then I thought Derrick Henry's a beast, and they've figured out that he's good. So, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. Next up, we have our first difference in opinion. So we have the Atlanta Falcons travelling to New York to take on the Giants. Both myself and Mr. Moore have picked the Giants to bust their 0, whereas Mr. Cook has picked the Falcons to get off the schneid, as I believe the saying goes.
Indeed.
So it's one of those games where basically everybody loses by tuning in. So just let Red Zone take care of that one and watch anything else.
So you don't expect to see a lot of it on Red Zone.
Nope.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's those sort of games though where one of the quarterbacks normally just explodes and throws for like 600 yards or something like that.
I think it's going to be one of them ones. I think, not having not watched much of either of them, if I was a Falcons fan, I'd be hoping that that Matt Ryan can get himself sorted and obviously start to do something with Kyle Pitts, because it's been disappointing so far.
That's the one thing I'd say would be from the Falcons' perspective. If they can get a big game out of Kyle Pitts, they might have a chance at this one, to be honest with you. So we'll see. It could turn out to be an absolute barn burner. Who knows? Well, we pretty much know, but that's not the point. Next up, we have the LA Chargers going to Kansas City, to take on the Chiefs. No surprises, we've all picked the Chiefs to bounce back. The Bengals travelling to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. We've all gone for the Steelers. The Baltimore Ravens travelling to Detroit to take on the Lions. We've all picked the Ravens. Shock horror. Next up, we've got another difference of opinions. We've got the New Orleans Saints travelling to New England to take on the Patriots. Both myself and Andy have picked the Saints to bounce back, whereas Matt has picked the Patriots to carry on with their winning streak. Any thoughts on that one, lads?
I honestly don't know if I've got less time for the Patriots now than when Brady was there. I just, they're terrible. I have this thing I'm like, can we petition for them to just get rid of the Jets? Like, I just see them as a pointless team. It's like, I imagine teams being like, for fuck's sake, we've got to travel to play the Jets. It's just like, it's just a waste of time. But,
well, I remember a couple of seasons ago when the Browns went 0-16. That I'm sure that was, I don't know if it was ever like a petition or something like that, but there was a load of people saying that they should try and get the Browns to go and play a game against Alabama. Because at the time, obviously, Alabama were the best team in college football. They pretty much are now anyway. But people were saying, oh yeah, they should just go and see how close Alabama can run them. And then everyone just went, no, the Browns would absolutely kill them. Because at the end of the day, they're professional footballers. And obviously, the offensive line and the defensive line, the difference in those would just be so overwhelming that, like, the defensive line would just crush the Alabama quarterback every snap of the ball, and so like that. And the Alabama defense just wouldn't get anywhere near the Browns quarterback, and so like that. And it's kind of the same. You'd imagine it'd be the same with the Jets, but I know what you mean. The Jets, yeah, they just need massive sweeping changes. Obviously, they've made that with Salah coming in as the new head coach, so. Give them a year or two, you never know, they might actually pick up like 5 wins in a season or something. Be a start.
But it's reaching the point now where the Patriots don't even feature on my radar. Like, the only time I ever really think about them is when they're mentioned, and I'm like, oh, Brady's not there anymore, so I don't have to hate them quite as much. And then I'm like, oh yeah, but they're terrible, aren't they?
It's all about Bill Belichick in it, so next up, we have our first cross-country trip of the season, or of the weekend even. So we've got the Arizona Cardinals travelling to Jacksonville to take on the Jaguars. Surprising enough, we've all picked the Cardinals to carry on their winning streak. We have the Washington football team taking on the Buffalo Bills. Again, we've all picked the Bills. The aforementioned New York Jets travelling to the Mile High City to take on the Broncos. We've all picked the Broncos, and no shock there. This is the first one that I thought we might have a little bit of a difference in opinion. So we've got the Miami Dolphins travelling to Las Vegas to take on the Raiders. Now, we've all gone for the Raiders. I don't think the Dolphins are that bad that it's a guaranteed win for the Raiders. Obviously, the situation with Tua might change things, but I've not been that convinced with what I've seen from him so far. I think he's potentially going to have that problem where he's just going to get labelled as a bit of an injury risk for the majority of the time that he's going to be in the league.
Yeah,
and it is. So I think something I was listening to the other day is that they passed on Justin Herbert.
Yeah, I saw
who
that.
looks like an absolute stud of a QB, and he's doing. He's got a really good sneaky run game. Everyone talks about Josh Allen's run game, and you're like, oh no, it's good, but his throws can be erratic. Whereas Herbert, I know he threw some interceptions this week, but generally he can absolutely sling it as well. And he's the real deal. And they passed over him to get Tua, and it's not looking good. I mean, what did they put? They put 17 points on the Pats the first week. I don't know how much they scored against the Bills this week, but it wasn't much. And I know he went out injured. None.
Bagel. Absolutely ridiculous.
I don't know. Their defense is great, but their offense is not up to. I mean, they got some really good wide receivers and decent, some really good wide receivers, but not good enough.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what happens if he doesn't play this week. Because obviously Jacoby Brissett's the backup there, so obviously he'll come in if he's not playing.
They're mixing that Fitz magic.
Yeah, exactly. He's a steady game manager, Jacoby Brissett, but he's not anything to get the juices flowing, so to speak. Next up, we've got the Seattle Seahawks versus the Minnesota Vikings. Both myself and Andy have picked the Seahawks to bounce back, whereas Mr. Moore's put his faith in Kirk Cousins for some unknown reason.
I don't know what happened. But I don't know. I thought maybe the Vikings might do something.
To be fair, they didn't look terrible against the Cardinals, and if it wasn't for a missed field goal at the end, they'd have taken the win. So I
can't really kind of come up with anything better than that.
He's like, I give him an hard time and stuff, but he's a fair to middling quarterback, I suppose. But he's just worth a fully guaranteed contract. No chance, mate. No chance. Next up, we've got arguably game of the week for me, at least, with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to LA to take on the Rams. Both Andy and Matt have picked the Bucs in this one. I've got a sneaky feeling for the Rams in this. I think if Aaron Donald can get to Tom Brady and make him eat his own spleen or something, then there's a chance we could see a little Rams win.
No,
not having that.
Why have I just said that? Now I'm going to have to deal with Monday morning. So, do you remember how you were saying the Bucs were going to win?
We'll see, Andrew, we'll see.
He made me kiss the ring last time.
Well, yeah, there is that. So, last couple of games. So we'll move on to the Sunday night game, which, tasty game again. It's the Green Bay Packers travelling to San Francisco to take on the 49ers in a repeat of the NFC Championship game from 2 seasons ago. We've all picked the Packers, which is strange because obviously the Packers don't seem to do well when it's warm, as we found out in week 1 when they went to Jacksonville to take on the Saints. Yeah. There's something about the 49ers that just doesn't sit well with me.
You're just not a fan of the 49ers
already.
They're still 2-0, but I just don't know. I don't like them. I just don't like them as a team.
You don't like the 49ers.
They annoy me. Why can't they just have a really, really, really good running back or a really, really, really good wide receiver? They've got
Deebo Samuel's really, really good wide receiver.
Yeah, but they've got 2 or 3 decent running backs, and they've got 2 or 3 decent wide receivers. They're from a fantasy perspective, they're a statistical nightmare because you can't ever play any of their players because they'll end up giving it to some guy. What's the running back they've got at the minute? Like Daenerys Hasty or something like that. His surname's Hasty, and he's picked up two touchdowns in the first 2 weeks. It's like, who is this guy? Or is it Jermichael Hasty or something like that?
But the problem's been this year is obviously they went into the start of the season. They went into the season with Mostert as the starting running back, and then obviously he barely got out of the first quarter of the first game. So then it was like Elijah Mitchell and Hasty and was it somebody Sermon, I think.
Yeah, Trey Sermon.
Trey Sermon, but then he'd had a bad bit like off season. He had a bad off season, so he kind of lost the second running back kind of thing. But it's just injuries. Like all those we've mentioned, the 4 running backs there, all 4 of them are now injured. So it's next man up. And the problem is, like, I think I was speaking to someone about this the other day. The fact of the matter is, Kyle Shanahan's a genius, and it doesn't matter what as long as your running back has kind of the basics of being a running back, he can produce a game plan that means he'll make. I think someone said the other day, like, he made Alfred Morris look good.
Yeah.
And like that got him a massive contract somewhere else because that's how good the scheme is, and the scheme is a very run-based scheme that he does. I don't know. Kittle and Deebo Samuel are probably like the 2 outstanding receivers in for the 49ers. I just think they're at the point of where injury. It's the same as last season where injuries just got to the point of like it's got too far kind of thing. When you're down to 5th and 6th and 7th running backs, and it doesn't matter whether the guy's a genius or not. It's just not. It just doesn't seem realistic to me. And Jimmy G is always a bit dodgy.
Yeah, my mates already made the joke that they just need to change their name to the 49 IRs.
This guy's fancy name in another league.
Lovely. Which brings us to our final game of the week. It's the Monday Night Football. Different to the UK Monday Night Football, as that's normally... it's still probably questionable teams, but it's the round-shaped ball as opposed to the egg-shaped ball. And we have the Philadelphia Eagles travelling to Arlington, Texas to take on the Dallas Cowboys. Now, myself and Andy have obviously gone with the Cowboys, whereas Matt has picked the Eagles. Interesting. Do you know what? From the start they've made, Jalen Hurts. Yeah, I'll have a little bit of Jalen Hurts, please. I think he's perfectly serviceable quarterback. He's got a good arm on him. He's got wheels. So yeah, I reckon he could be. He's doing well with his audition. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
obviously he's got.
I thought it'd be a disaster.
I didn't think he'd be much. But
when he signed Minshew, I was like, all right, okay, then he's not good.
Yeah, well, they've obviously given him weapons with Devonta Smith. That was their first round draft pick. So,
and Rager from last season seems to be.
They seem to put a bit of a rapport together. So it's like that everyone just goes like Jalen to Jalen. So it's just Jalen squared whenever they get a touchdown or something. It's nice. It's obviously nice. So. Yeah, that's all of week 3's games. Like I said, 16 points up for grabs. We'll see how we all get on.
Fantastic stuff. So that's last week's games, the stats and the predictions all done and dusted. If I'm not wildly mistaken, that brings us to the any other business section of the podcast.
Well, no other business as such. However, it's just whether you want to talk a little fantasy.
Oh yeah,
seems as though our guest for this week is going up against one of us in the fantasy league.
Correct, sir. Correct. You are, as always, correct. Fantasy football. It's a pastime enjoyed by millions. And these 3 people here, I mean, enjoy is not the right word, is it? It's... Well, and this is nothing against last week's guest, but I certainly enjoyed checking the old app this morning because I was like, yeah, I'm going to get absolutely smashed this week. I was like, I've got 1 player left, but my running back that's left to play is my opponent's quarterback. I was like, it's all going to go wrong. checked this morning. I was like, what's gone wrong with all these numbers? Why are all the numbers on this side? What's gone on there? So 34 points from Jones. Yes, please. So I don't know about you boys, but I enjoyed not only one win, because when you've got Jones in both leagues, it's a 2-win week for me. Paul, did you have a win this week?
In our league, yes. In my other league, hell no.
I had running commentary about how you were destroying the Stats Mistress this week.
Yeah, she got a bit unlucky with that one.
I told her I sent her to live in the garden because that doesn't fly in this house.
I must admit, you've had a bad / semi-decent week in fantasy when your highest scoring position
Defense
is defense. So that was a real eye opener. Let's put it that way.
Shakabuku.
I'm also at the point where I kind of think I need to change my kicker, because even though the Buccaneers scored 48 points, Ryan Suckup was only responsible for 6 of them, and they were all extra points.
I don't know anything about that. It's not like I've got him in my other league.
Like, kicker's always a difficult one for me, because you need to sort of like think of teams that are good at getting it into the opponent's half, but terrible at converting third downs.
Well, not that shit that you end up like me with Josh Lambo from Jacksonville. Missing 2 field goals and only getting his extra point, so that led me with a -1 from him. And then I picked up the Arizona D because they'd done all right the previous week. I thought they might give Minnesota a bit of a shellacking, and they got -2. So that was a profitable day by the 2 most hated positions in fantasy football, and led to a bit of a stuffing for me from Tim the Squirrel Killers.
Certainly is.
Indeed, it is.
He really needs to change that name. Considering
I
that
did win in my other fantasy league, so.
Well, the Squirrel isn't even in the league anymore. He's retired now. Old Julian Edelman, he's gone.
Yeah, he has indeed. So, I will be taking on Mr. Matthew Moore, and it's good luck to you, sir. I'm sure we will sort this out on the gridiron.
Yep.
Paul, is your opponent obviously not here?
It's the mystery man of the league.
Mystery man himself.
We don't know an awful lot about him. It's Mr. John Shinner.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
The international man of mystery, even though I'm pretty sure he lives in the northeast. So
the JFG ringer, kind of, he's got another.
So, for fans of the podcast from a long time ago, may realise that in the first couple of series of the podcast, we mentioned the fact that up until the point where Matt was viewable on the podcast, it was rumoured viciously and erroneously, may I add, that Matt didn't really exist.
So I was doing some housekeeping of some digital photos last week, and I stumbled across the picture of Matthew Moore, quarterback, which I used at the time to say, "Oh, here we go! Look at this." Not only has he made up a human being to get a second team in the fantasy league, he's gone sneaky Pete and gone with an actual NFL quarterback. So I had a little chuckle when I found that the other day. I was like, look. Before Matt was real. Before the figment of Paul's imagination took a life of its own and started talking about different types of football, wrestling, and beer. Anything else Anything else that we've got to get off our chests before?
Nothing else.
Well, that's that then. So, all that's left to say is I hope that everybody enjoys the games, the upcoming games. Good luck to you, Mr. Moore. Good luck to everybody in the fantasy. And we will be here, same bat time, same bat channel, bringing this week's results and predicting more games. So until then, we're going to say bye. We will see you then. Tatty byes.
Bye.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Another one done. Another week of the season gone. And another week to look forward to. Good times. If you are feeling in the subscribing mood, you can subscribe on iTunes, SoundCloud, YouTube, or wherever you're getting this podcast. If you want to drop us a line, you can jump over to thecookiecast.com. See what we've got going on there. It's just a little website, but it does have links for you to be able to get in touch with us and let us know how you're doing. So there we go. That's it for this one. Until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.